All right, guys. So today I have a Wii U console that I'm going to show how to diagnose. So initially, you want to plug these consoles in and see if they just work. If they work, then there's no reason to diagnose them further. But on this particular console, what I'm going to show you is that if I turn around and I set up the Wii U gamepad, which I'm going to do right now, this console will end up with the dreaded error code that tells us that there's a failing, or at least points to a possible failing eMMC. And the point of this video is to step you through and show you how to use the recovery tools that are out there in order to further diagnosis and validate whether or not it needs a NAND-AID installed or if the console just needs the MLC rebuilt. All right, so there's the dreaded message. And all I did was touch the Wii U controller and attempt to set this up, and we end up with that error code 1600103. So if this is what your Wii U is doing, or you get one of the other codes that points to an eMMC failing, watch this video and it should give you enough information to properly use the tools out there in order to diagnose it. So let's go ahead and turn this console off and get into the video on how to set up a udpih as well as the recovery menu on the SD card so that we can at least dump the log files and take a closer look at this error message and validate whether the eMMC is failing or if it's another problem. Anyways, to start, we need a SD card or a micro SD card and an SD card adapter. So this is what we're going to put the appropriate files for the recovery menu, as well as ISFShax to be installed on the Wii U for diagnosing. We need a Raspberry Pi Pico, which is used for the udpih, which allows us to get into the recovery menu. And then you need the USB cable that you plug into the Raspberry Pi Pico, and then the other end plugs into the front of the console on the Wii U. So let's move over to a computer and I will show how to get this Raspberry Pi Pico set up with the udpih firmware, and I will also show how to set up this SD card to be used inside a Wii U console. All right, everyone. So the first thing that we want to do is plug the SD card that we'll be using to do this, as well as the Raspberry Pi Pico, into a computer. I've already done that. This drive E here is the Raspberry Pi Pico, and the drive F is my 64 gigabyte SD card that I'll be using. So let's grab the udpih firmware to get it on the Pico. I already have the GitHub page opened. I will put this link in the description. We need this udpih_Pico firmware. So we're going to click that and download it. And it's just going into my downloads directory. So let's minimize my web browser. Let's go over here and let's open up this E drive, which is the Raspberry Pi Pico. So inside here, you're always going to have these two files. Ignore it. All we're going to do is drag and drop this udpih_pico.uf2 file onto this drive. And what will happen is it will automatically disconnect from the computer. That means the firmware is installed and that portion is done. Okay, like so. So now if we go back to this PC, all we have is the 64 gigabyte SD card that we need to put some files on. So let's go ahead and open up that. Again, I'm going to go back to Firefox, and traditionally what we would do was just download this recovery menu. And I'm going to leave this section in the video for people who just want to do this. But there's a better method now, because what you're likely going to have to do is install ISFShax and use the minute menu for the advanced recovery tools. So if you want to go to this page, I will leave the link in the description and you can download this recovery_menu by clicking it and move that to the memory card. But I'm going to take you down a different path here that just does the memory card setup all at once and makes it ready to use. So what we actually have to do is head over to the GBA, I think it's the temp forms. I'm just going to search for this because I don't know what the link is off the top of my head. And what we're looking for is ISFShax installation. And hopefully Google returns what we need. Okay, and it did. So this ISFShax install guide is written by SDIO. He's one of the major contributors to these recovery tools to be able to repair these Wii U consoles. And he recently updated this guide. So if we scroll down to preparing the SD card section, what you're going to find in here is that there's now this link to download everything you need to do this. So we're going to go ahead and click that link. We're going to hit download. And we're going to open up our downloads directory. And what this gives us is a zip file. So we're going to right click this. We're going to hit extract all. We're going to hit extract. And we're going to close that window. And we're going to go back to this guide. Now inside this guide, SDIO tells you exactly what you need to do. You need to extract it and then move everything inside the SD folder to the root of the SD card. If it asks you to merge folders and replace existing files, we're going to hit yes. So let's minimize this. Let's go to this SD folder. And all of these files need to be copied over to our drive. So we're going to hit copy. And this is the drive on my computer. It's labeled as F. Your SD card may show up as a different lettered drive. That's okay if it does. Just make sure you have that opened up. We're going to hit paste. And that gives us everything we need to follow all of the recovery tools that I'm going to use in this video. So we're done with that portion of the video. Let's move over to actually diagnosing the console. All right, guys, so we got the Wii U console here hooked up to this monitor. We got the memory card that we previously set up, as well as the Raspberry Pi Pico is now a udpih. So I'm going to show how to do this. Put this in the front of the console. And then what we want to do is bring this end of the cable over to the Wii U and make sure that we're ready to plug this in. So the window to plug this into the console and actually get it to boot in the recovery menu is very small. This might take you a few tries, but typically what I like to do is I hit the power button and then the disk drive will start spinning up, and when it stops is when I plug it in. Okay, and as you can see, I got it on the first try. It may not work that way for you guys, which is perfectly fine. If it doesn't, just keep trying. I just wanted to showcase that to clear up the confusion that a lot of people get stuck on. That's how it's done. So I'm going to cut the video here and go back to the tutorial that I was setting up. I made a single change on this SD card for those who are interested. I renamed the boot 1 now firmware to boot 1 so it didn't automatically load the payload, but I want to showcase what's going to happen if you follow my tutorial and you use the new setup guide that SDIO created. It will automatically boot into the minute menu. There's no reason to go through these initial steps any longer. So I'm just going to pause the video here and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I've renamed that boot 1 file to boot 1 now, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing again to show you guys what happens when you go to do this. So we're going to turn the console on. Oh, I have it upside down. Okay, we're going to have to do that again. All right, so turn console on. Wait for the disk drive to stop spinning. And plug in the udpih. All right, so this is what you guys will be seeing when you do this. It's going to automatically go into the boot 1. And this is the minute menu. So once you're inside the minute menu, there's a couple things that you need to do. The first thing that I'm going to do is scroll down to boot iOS image and actually install ISFShax so that I don't have to use the recovery menu or the udpih any longer to get into this menu. So in order to do that, we got to use the power button here to scroll down. And we're going to boot iOS.image. We're going to hit the eject button to select that. So this is going to go into the ISFShax installer. I'm never going to get used to saying that. We're going to use the eject button to hit continue. We're going to hit the eject button to hit continue again. And we're going to hit the eject button to install ISFShax. And we'll use the power button here to go up to yes, proceed. Hit the eject button to select it, and this is going to install it. Once it's installed, we'll hit eject to continue, and then we're going to hit eject to power off the console. Once the console is powered off, all you have to do is unplug the udpih. We don't need this anymore, so we can set this aside. Leave the memory card in the console, and then every time that you turn this back on, it will automatically go into the minute menu. So now comes the fun part. This is where we want to go down to the backup and restore menu, which is all the way down here. And inside here, the very first option says dump Seeprom and OTP. We want to do that, so we have a copy of those files. And those files don't take very long to dump. They're very quick. Once they're dumped, we're going to hit eject to return. And now we're going to use the power button to go down to dump slc.raw. We're going to select it with eject. This can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. It depends on the condition of the console. Just sit back and wait. It's going to dump the SLC for you. Once it's done, it will notify you that it's done. So you might get uncorrectable errors showing up in here, which usually correct. You don't have to worry about that. It's perfectly normal. So what I'm going to do here is just pause the video and wait for this to complete so you guys can see that it's completed. Those are those uncorrectable errors I was telling you about. See how they came up and it says it's corrected. That's perfectly fine. Just let it keep going. All right, once it's completed, it's going to say press power to exit. We're going to hit the power button. And again, we're back in the backup and restore menu. Once you're in there, we're going to use the power button. We're going to scroll down to dump SLCCMPT.raw. And again, it's going to go through this dumping process. It will only take a couple minutes. In order to save time, I'm going to pause the video here. Well, actually, I'm just going to speed the video up. All right, once you're done, you're going to get the same message. Hit the power button to exit. It's going to bring us back to the backup and restore menu. All right, guys, the last thing that you want to do is we want to go down to dump system crash logs. We need these logs in order to identify if the eMMC is actually failing or not. You're going to scroll down using the power button, and then you're going to use the eject button to dump these. So if you already have a logs directory, which apparently I do, so I must have already done this, This is what happens when you're trying to make a really long video and you forgot what you've done. I'm just going to leave this in the video because I'm human. I make mistakes. Anyhow, it's going to warn you and ask if you would like to overwrite this for the sake of the video and to showcase this. I'm just going to hit the eject button. This doesn't really matter because it's the logs from this console anyways. So, and then it dumped the logs. We're back to the backup and restore menu. We're now done with this. You can either go ahead and unplug the console, which is usually the way that I do it, but some people would prefer to gracefully shut down the console. If you want to do that, use the power button. We're going to go all the way down here and hit return to main menu. And then we're going to go all the way down the second from the bottom. It says power off. And this allows us to select the power off and the console will turn off. So now let's head over to the computer. I'm going to show you guys what you can do with these log files and how to interpret them in order to determine if the console needs a NAND-AID installed in it or not. All right, everyone. So now we're back at the computer. All I've done is take the memory card out of the front of the Wii U console and I've plugged it back into my computer. So as you can see here, here's the drive. So you're going to notice now that this drive has a bunch of files on it that weren't there before. So just to start, what we need is the udpih.bin. We need the Seeprom encrypted, the SLC, the SLCCMPT. Those files need to be copied and stored in a safe location. You can choose to leave them on the memory card and store them on your computer so you have two copies, or you can choose not to. I'll leave that up to you guys. For this particular demonstration, I'm going to just remove them from the memory card because I use this memory card a lot and they won't stay on there anyways. So I'm going to cut these. And then I'm just going to make a folder on my desktop here, and we're just going to call it Wii U Backup Files. Open that up and hit paste. All right, so the last files that we need are the log files here. So again, I'm going to cut those and put them in the exact same folder because they pertain to this specific console. And then we can close the SD card. We don't need that anymore. So inside the logs directory, this is how we're going to interpret these. You can have anywheres from 1 up to 99 log files. So this particular console has 95. Because the way the console writes log files, we cannot just assume that number 95 is the latest log because it will loop through them and overwrite them. So on this particular console, we're just gonna, and I'm gonna show this method so anybody can do this. What we need to do is take this meta.bin and put it in a hex editor and get the hexadecimal code from it. That will tell us which log stores the latest information. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. I'm not going to go over the different software you can download for a hex editor. For this particular instance, let's just use an online tool, which I already have open. It's called hex.it. This tool allows us to upload the meta.bin file and it will give us the hexadecimal from it. Now, under normal circumstances, I don't recommend doing this because whatever file you're uploading, you're giving to somebody else. But this meta.bin file for Wii U doesn't have any information that matters, so you can safely do this. So we're going to hit open file and we're going to go back to desktop here. And on the desktop, the Wii U backup files, and then we're going to go into the logs. And it should be all the way at the bottom, so we'll scroll down, we'll select the meta.bin. Okay, so my particular file is log number 6. I know that because I know hexadecimal enough to know that that's what this equals, but I'm going to show you guys how to convert this just in case you don't get one that's this simple. So if we take this code, actually, one second, is this... No, it's hexadecimal, that's for sure. Okay, so we're just gonna take this. So what this is 7 zeros and a 6. So another website, I'll put it in the description. It's called rapidtables.com. From here, we can do hexadecimal to decimal converter. So if we do those 7 zeros plus a 6, you will see that this converts to number 6. All right, so let's close this down. Let's go back to our log files, and what we need to open up is log number 6, which is going to be right here. The log number 6 you're opening is always a text document. It has readable information in it. So if you get something that has a bunch of jargon, you've opened up the wrong log file. So inside this log file, what we want to do is search for media error. So what I'm going to do is just type in media error and see what comes up. You could potentially scroll through this, but there's 28,000 characters. There's a lot of lines, a lot of columns. Just search for it. It's a lot easier. And as you can see, we have this line of code. This indicates that there's a problem with the eMMC. And actually, we have it multiple times in the log file. And we probably have it more. So that's what you want to look for. If you see this in your log file, you can be certain that the eMMC is failing and needs to be replaced. So this particular console does need a NAND-AID installed. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm not going to show in this particular video how to install the NAND-AID. I have a separate video that I already created showcasing that. I'm also not going to show the disassembly of the Wii U console. So what I'm going to do now is off camera install that NAND-AID, and then we'll come back and I'll show you guys how to rebuild the MLC and get the console up and running. All right, guys. So this particular console is one that I don't see very often. It's a WUP40. According to online, they're apparently rare. I don't know if it has anything special in it. I just thought I would point that out. And then also I'm going to show that the NAND-AID is installed. So this is what it should look like. Let's get this over here. We'll zoom in some. So that's the full NAND-AID installed, and then you have the SD card inserted. So I just wanted to point this out because I've been doing this for so long now and I've done so many of these consoles. If you install one of these and you push on the SD card and it doesn't move forward and doesn't pop out, see, very easy. If it sticks or if the locking mechanism does not release, you've likely melted this SD card holder when you were soldering. You overheated it and it probably won't work. I'm just throwing that tip out there because I think there's a lot of people online that run into this problem and they don't know where the failure was once they get the console back together, and they're like, hey, what the heck? It's not reading the SD card. That's probably why. So you got to be careful when you're heating that up. You can't hold the soldering iron on too long, otherwise you melt the plastic. But that being said, let me go ahead and get this console put back together, and then we'll move on with the tutorial on how to rebuild the MLC and get this console working. All right, guys, before I go ahead and reassemble this, I just wanted to show you, you don't have to have everything put back into this. All you need is the front panel connected and you can power this on. If you're not going to attach the fan like I did with the fan shroud, the console can overheat, so be careful what you do, but it's easier to partially assemble this, make sure it's working before getting it all back together. And what I mean by that is, here, we're going to go back into this menu. So in order to validate that the NAND-AID's installed and detected, we want to go to the backup and restore menu again, and then we want to go down to erase MLC. So, and then once you get in here, it's going to ask you yes. So we're going to hit eject for yes. And that is a successful erase of an MLC. As you can see, it gets to the end. It says MLC erase complete. So that means that the NAND-AID is fully soldered in place and is working. The console detects that and also detects the SD card, which is the replacement MLC. So now we can continue on. I'll get the console put back together off camera. You guys don't need to see that. And I'm going to go back to the computer, and now I'm going to show you guys how to set the SD card up. We need a couple more files and everything added to that SD card in order to rebuild this MLC and get this console back fired up and working. So we're heading over to the computer right now. I'll see you there. All right, guys, we're back at the computer. So all I've done was taken the SD card out of the Wii U, plugged it back to my computer. You should recognize these files. So we need to add a couple things to the SD card. The first thing that we have to do is go and grab what is called the Waffle Setup MLC. So that's on a GitHub page. The GitHub page is right here. You can either pause the video, but I will put the links in the description so you can easily click this. So what we want to grab is waffle_MLC. All right, once you download that, you're going to cut it. And then what we have to do is we have to put this on the SD card, but it has to go inside the Wii U directory, inside the iOS plugins. So paste it in there. And that takes care of the Waffle Setup MLC. So the second thing that we need is you need to grab the MLC Restore Downloader file. Again, it's on GitHub. I will link in the description. I'm using Windows, so if you're using Windows 11 or Windows 10, this is the same thing you're going to download. If you're using some other version of an operating system like Windows ARM, you need Windows ARM. If you're using Linux, you need Linux. If you're using Darwin, you need Darwin. So we're going to grab this. We're going to extract this. And then what we get is an MLC Restore Downloader. Now, before we can do this, what we have to do is those files I had you save earlier in the video, we need to copy the otp.bin to this directory. And that's going to give the downloader the appropriate hash key or whatever the heck it is in order to download these files. So I'm just going to copy this. We'll put this in here. And then we can launch this. So Windows is always going to come up with this stupid protection thing. Just hit more info. Don't worry about this. Hit run anyways. And then what we're going to get is a black window, which is really the command prompt. And it's going to give you a bunch of selections. So we need to download MLC titles as well as SLC titles. And the reason I'm downloading SLC titles is because I want to update the firmware on this console. It's old. So let's do the MLC titles first. So we're going to type in 1. We're going to hit enter. So my console is a USA console. So I'm going to select 2 for USA. If your console is USA, select 2. If it's another region, select the other region. Now, and then what this is going to do is it's going to start downloading these titles. So the total amount of files you should end up with is 52. And it's about 1 gigabyte in size. So just let it do its thing, and then we'll move on and we'll grab the SLC files, and I'll show you where to put these. All right, when you get done, it's going to tell you all done. Press enter to exit. So we're going to hit enter, and that's going to close the MLC restore downloader. So we're going to relaunch this. And this time we're going to select option 2 to download the SLC titles. So again, select your region. I'm in the USA and my console's the USA, so I'm going to select 2. And it's going to go through and download all the SLC titles. All right, and as you can see, the SLC titles download way faster because there's far fewer of them when it's done. Let's hit enter to exit. We're now done with this. We want to go to the output directory, which is in the same folder as the MLC restore downloader. And inside here, we got 2 directories, SLC and MLC. Let's drag this over, and we're going to close this window, and we're going to go back to our SD card. So on our SD card, inside here, we need to create a new directory. In the root of the SD card, that directory needs to be called waffle_install. So that's what you're going to see me do right now. Like so. We're going to open up that directory, and then inside that directory, what we want to do is drag all 52 title files from the MLC. So we have to go in the MLC directory in the USA, and they look like this. We want to grab all of these, and we want to copy these over. So depending on your SD card and how fast it is, this could take a couple of minutes to transfer. All right, so once the MLC files are done transferring over, we want to go back to the output directory. We're going to go into the SLC folder. We're going to go into the USA folder, and we're going to copy these over as well. Okay, we're done. We got everything we need now to rebuild the MLC. You can go ahead and close these folders down, and I'm going to head back over to the Wii U console, and I'll show you how that's done. All right, guys, we're back at the test bench. So I got the memory card that I set up on the computer that I just showed you how to do in the Wii U console. I just want to go over a couple things. I usually do not fully reassemble these until the MLC is being rebuilt. I've uninstalled ISFShax, and I validated that the console is fully working. In order to rebuild the MLC, we don't need the disk drive. We don't need the battery. You don't even need half of the components I have here. So what I like to do is I put 2 of these brackets in that hold the disk drive in, only to hold the front cover in place, because it makes it sturdy and a lot easier to push these buttons to navigate the menus. Other than that, I don't put any screws in this. I just lay this heat shield here, and then I put the fan in place with a single screw on this side or that side. It doesn't really matter, just to hold it so that it has cooling. And then we can go ahead and go in and rebuild this. So let's get into that. I'm going to plug this in and show you guys how to do that. So we're going to turn this on. It's going to boot back into the minute menu automatically. And then what we want to do is use the power button, and we're going to go back down into backup and restore. We're going to hit eject to select that. Once we're inside here, We don't have to dump any of those files that we've already dumped. So all we have to do is go down here, and we're going to do two things. We're going to erase the MLC inside this console. Hit eject to hit yes. And there, the MLC is fully formatted and ready to be used. You can see it there on screen. So we're going to hit the power button to quit. It's going to bring us back to the backup and restore menu. Now what we want to do is go down to delete scfm.img. So use the power button to navigate down to this. We're going to hit eject for yes. And as you can see, the delete is complete. So we're going to hit power to exit. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom and return to the main menu. From the main menu, we're going down to the third option. It's Patch SD and Boot iOS SLC. This is what rebuilds the MLC. Now, once we select this, it's going to show some information on screen, but then none of the progress is going to show on screen. We have to look at this front LED to know what's happening. So you guys will see this. Oops, hit the wrong button there. Let me navigate back around. All right, so eject to select this. All right, so if this works for you, you will get down to jumping to iOS, go, go, go. And then nothing else is going to show up on screen. You have to pay attention to this front LED on the console. If everything's working correctly, it's going to be a blue blinking light, and this can take anywheres. Actually, I don't think my camera, does that show up as blue on the camera? I hope it does. It looks kind of white. I guess you guys can tell me in the video. This is blue. So this can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Just let this go. If the light starts blinking orange, that means it ran into an error, but it's still working. So just let it complete. If it turns solid red, you have a major problem and you need to resolve it. I can't provide any troubleshooting tips for solid red in this video. If you're installing a NAND-AID, the likelihood of you running into that is very slim. But if you do, it's likely that the SD card or the NAND-AID lost connection to the console during this process. I personally have never run into it. I don't know if other people have. I'm just theorizing here. But what you want to see is a blue light or an orange light blinking like so. That tells us that everything's good. So I'm going to walk away here. I'll speed up this part of the video so you can watch this finish. All right, guys, so as you can see down here, the light stopped blinking. That means that the MLC has been rebuilt. So what we're going to do is we're going to unplug this console to reset the power. Then we're going to plug it back in. All right, now before we can continue, we have to take this memory card out of this console. And we have to go back to the computer, and that waffle underscore setup MLC that we put on earlier, we need to remove that. Otherwise, we're just going to end up in a loop where it keeps resetting up the MLC for the console. So let's head back to the computer. I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll come back to this Wii U console and we'll get into the actual setup phase of getting this working again. All right, so back at the computer here, we got the SD card plugged in the computer. We're going back into Wii U, iOS plugins, and this waffle setup we need to delete. And that's all you got to do. So let's head back over to the Wii U and finish this setup and get this thing up and running. All right, guys, we're back. We got the memory card. We removed the waffle underscore setup underscore MLC. We put the memory card back into the console. Now, before I go forward, I'm actually going to reattach the disk drive. This isn't explicitly necessary, but I want to be able to set up the console without having to turn it off and put this back in. I also want to be able to do all my testing all at once. So I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to connect this first or connect it later. So I'm going to connect all this stuff and I'll make that really snappy. All right, now that's taken care of. Let's go ahead and turn the console back on and finish this setup. All right, once we're back into the minute menu, we want to head down to this patch SD and boot iOS SLC. It's the third from the top. And we're going to select this again. And what this should do, if everything is working correctly, is launch right into the Wii U Setup menu. As you can see, it's on the gamepad already, and it's on the screen. And this shows you that you've successfully rebuilt the MLC. So now we're just going to go through and we're going to set this all up. I'm going to speed up this portion of the video because I think anybody who has a Wii U console has already seen this and there's nothing special in here. All right, guys, so there's the whole Wii U console setup. So what I like to do at this point is I always test the disk drive to make sure that I can install a game from it and load it. Also, a lot of these consoles that you repair, some of them are deluxe models that came with other games pre-installed. Those games, in my experience, always show back up. So I also like to connect this to the internet and just give it a half hour to an hour and see if any games show up. So give me a moment. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a game disc and we can test this. And I'll just show you the testing that I go through. Once I validate all of this stuff, I go and I remove ISFShax from the menu and I boot back into the console to make sure that everything's still running. All right, guys, I'm back. I got a game here. So I'm just going to use Hyrule Warriors. All right, you can use any game you want. It doesn't matter. All right, so the whole purpose of this is to validate that you're able to download and get updates and store it in the memory. And Hyrule Warriors I've used in the past, so I know that it downloads a pretty decent size update. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's near 1 gigabyte in size. But like I said, you can use any game that you want. The purpose is to test the console to play a game and also to test the disk drive. I'm not going to play a whole lot of this on camera because this video is really long to begin with. I just want to make sure I'm able to load into the game and move the character around. And it looks like we can. So this is enough testing for this portion of this, and I can just move on and do the other testing that I typically do on these consoles. Off camera, I do a lot more testing with these to validate that they're functional, and I don't remember the controls. All right, we can go ahead and close that software. And I just want to see if anything's actually downloading. No, we don't want to link this right now. We don't care about any of that. Actually, I'm not 100% sure if these will download any updates anymore because Nintendo shut down the servers, I'm pretty sure. So we might be waiting for nothing here. While I was editing the video, Hyrule Warriors actually started downloading the update that I was referring to earlier in the video. So this does confirm that Nintendo servers are still working for updates and you can download stuff from them. So forget what I said earlier in the video. They're still operational. Just wanted to make that correction so it didn't cause any confusion. We've done this testing. We can go in and we can also validate inside the system settings that the firmware of this console has been updated, and that's what those SLC files earlier in the video were for. So yeah, we can see right here. We can see right here that it's the latest version for my region, which is USA 556U. So we're all set. I'm going to turn the console off, and then we're going to go remove ISFShax and validate that the console's still functioning. And that's really the last step. Further testing can be done with the console by playing some games on it, installing some games, or doing whatever you want with these. I know there's a lot of people that do homebrew or pretendo, which is another thing. But when you get to this point, this is a good indication that everything is functioning. You can also check an MLC log file that's stored on this memory card on the computer to see if there was any errors or anything during that installation. I didn't show that in this video, but it is there to reference if you run into a problem. All right, so we're going to turn the console back on, and we're going to get right back into the minute menu. This is the number one reason why most people want to remove ISFShax after you're done using it. There are some workarounds. I'm not going to go into it where you can leave this on the console. There's really no reason to, and I think the majority of people probably want to remove this. If you, however, are going to mod your console using Homebrew, you're better off just leaving this on the console because it gives you a method of recovery without having to jump through hoops. But for this particular console, I'm going to assume that you're trying to get the console back to its original state as shipped from Nintendo. And if that's the case, then what we want to do is go down to here, select boot ios.image. Once we're inside here, we're back into the ISFShax installer. We're going to hit eject to continue. We're going to hit continue again. We're going to hit the power button to go down to uninstall. We're going to hit eject. And then we're going to hit the power button to hit yes, proceed. And there we go. It's been removed from the console. Once this is done, you hit continue, the console's going to power off. There's the power off. Now we no longer need this memory card. You can remove it. The console is back to effectively factory settings from Nintendo. It will work just like any other Wii U console from Nintendo would work. So I'll just turn this back on, and this just validates that the console powers on and boots up. So, and there you guys have it. We have a fully working Wii U console now that's been repaired using the recovery tools out there. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and I hope other people out there can follow this and repair those Wii U's that are dying due to low quality parts that Nintendo chose to use. That being said, that's the video. If you guys have any questions or follow-ups, I would recommend making a post on my website. YouTube comments is not a great place to ask for help. I respond to a lot of these comments, and for some reason, my responses either take days to show up or don't show up at all. Anyhow, I'll catch you guys in another video. Oh, hey, if you guys are still here, one of the last things that you can actually do on these consoles to make sure that everything went without a hitch, even though we didn't have any indication that we had problems during this entire procedure, one of the last things I actually do is after setting up the console, I always do a delete all content and settings. So you can come right into the settings to do that. If you're a reseller, please do this and make sure the console is fully functioning. Don't go and sell a console that you think is working, hasn't been fully tested. The reason why this step is important is because some of these recovery tools that we use on these consoles occasionally cause, I'm gonna call it corruption within the file system on the MLC, which can lead this to delete all content and settings on the Wii U to error out or freeze or go into an infinite loop. So I'm gonna go ahead and showcase this on this particular console, and we're just going to do this and see what happens. If the console is fully functioning, this will delete everything and bring us back to the setup window, no problem, and we won't have any hiccups. So let's just go through that and showcase it. And there you can see that the console has been fully formatted and wiped. So the console power's off. Let's power it back on and just validate that everything's working. All right, so we're back to the start of this. We got to sync the gamepad. I'm not going to go through the whole setup again. I'm just going to sync this and then the video here just to show that this is indeed working. All right. All right, and there we go. We're back to setting up the Wii U console again. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.